all separated and everything, just kicked it back off.
Nice.
Yeah, so the longshoreman piece. So like any specific part that you wanted to
I don't know longshoreman. Like, what is it? How is it that ports work?
I mean, so I don't know all of it. So the way my father explained it to me is that, this is from back in the day. We're talking about what, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever, or 70s, 80s, 90s. Get these big ships. I don't know. I think they call them barges. I don't know what they're called. You got all of these cans on the ship. I guess they call them cans. You've seen like trailers, whatever's on the back of an 18-wheeler. When they just slam it on the back of an 18-wheeler, sometimes you'll just see a trailer, and they'll be filled with just all the stuff. Could be cars, could be anything that you see in the stores. It could be anything. And so basically, you got these people who will unload the trucks or the cans. And I'm pretty sure it was a lot of crime going on back then because, you got all of this product coming through the port. So, but those are the jobs, you got the people who operate the crane because you got to take this heavy, these things are tons, you know what I'm saying? And it's like hundreds of them. It's not, like I think these ships, all they're built to do is to hold these cans. So they would have these cans stacked as high as they could and as many as they could. So there might be, it's at least dozens, but it's above 100, I think, for most ships. And then so you just get in the crane to take off the cans, put them onto the port, stack them. What's that again?
Shipping containers from the 18
shipping containers. Yeah, I think they call them cans, though. I'm not sure.
Aaron said your dad worked there for a long period of time, so he was able to kind of break it down.
Yeah. He was long. That's what he was. He was a longshoreman, and so he just has an understanding of ports, and just the way that they work, crane operators, and different understanding that I guess other ports stand aware because you just know the companies, you know what they do, Pretty sure like maybe back then the port work was probably, I would say, I don't know how standardized, but standardized to some extent, right? So you go to one, you go to all of them almost, in a sense. So yeah, you just taking product and you're loading product and unloading product into these shipping trailers. And I'm pretty sure it's different jobs, people that, like I said, crane operators and then people that drive around and take things from here to there. It's like, almost like a warehouse in a sense. You got all of this product, now you got to take it out of here maybe it came on pallets or something. You got to remove these pallets and take this work over here. And I'm pretty sure that the way that this is a system that 18-wheelers are just line up, come get their package or, load up and then take it off from the water to the land or on road to wherever they need to take it to. So it's like the last leg of shipping process. Because I remember when something happened, I guess it was Long Beach. Something happened a couple of years ago back when COVID was going on. Oh, I think Long Beach, because they had these rules because of COVID that it was like only one line for trucks or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was, but they just had ships just waiting out in the ocean, just waiting to undock. Just waiting to unload. And they were just waiting in the line. It was crazy. That's why I was just like, and it was around Christmas time, I think. Well, I think this happened in October, November, so it was going to affect the Christmas shipments and everything. So yeah.
Yeah, they were pretty strong union from what I can tell. Seems like that's something people are pretty impressed.
I think I was in a union once before. I guess to me, if you think of unions and what they were and how they operate, you can see, look, I don't want to paint unions as shady business. Just off the rip. But I'll just say that they have a structure that could lend to shadiness, right? And I'm not saying that it comes from a bad place, but let me just give it a specific example. If you're just talking about the Teamsters, like we just talking about like history, Jimmy Hoffa and, and the Teamsters and how they operated and how it was like a lot of intimidation and things of that nature when it comes to unions and what they want and how they get it and all of these different things. Okay, and when you talk about how strong a union is, I gotta think like some of that is bullying. Some of it is bullying.
Yeah, that is the power they hold. Sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's economic, but it is frequently bullying. Yeah.
Did you ever see this movie? I don't want to jump the topic. You ever see this movie? I think the Obamas produced it. It was called, I think it's called American Factory.
No.
It's pretty good. I think American Factory. Yeah.
What was it about?
So it's a documentary, and there was a factory. I think it's in Ohio that was closing down, and Chinese bought it, and it was like this experiment to kind of bring Chinese and American workers together and try to, get this company either back up and running or whatever. And so it was just like this meeting of these cultures, and it became a mess in a sense. I mean, look, it's good. Like, one of the things that I remember that pops out first thing in my mind is that they'll have these meetings with the Chinese, and the Chinese workers will have a Chinese leader, and they will talk to them about Americans. And one of the things is like, Americans do not like to use abstract thinking. He's saying this in Chinese, right? And so basically the Chinese were looking at the Americans like, yo, what are y'all doing? And so the Americans, almost at every turn in this factory, it would be like these safety concerns. And the Chinese would just be working, and the Americans would be like, I'm not going in there. It's hot in there. And they would break all of these glass. They would break the glasses because basically they're making windshields, car windshields, right? And they making them to a certain perfection, and it's hot, and all these different concerns. And what comes out of this whole thing is that Chinese are better workers, and Americans kind of pathetic in a sense, in some sense, like they
would do things that the Americans weren't.
I mean, they had some legitimate concerns, but it became the safety concerns became the whole job in a sense, right? And a lot of these people used to work for the old company, make a lot more money than they make it now, but they just happy to get a job. So, man, you kind of got to go through the ebbs and flows of the show if you watch it, because it's factory closes down, Chinese buys it, opens it back up. Now it's jobs in the place, in Ohio. This is one of those places where it's like the what's it called? The steel belt, or I think it's called the steel belt. Basically, yeah. And it's like, its jobs are hard to come by, and these people some people were grateful to have a job. And then, working with the Chinese, they were thinking like, oh, wow, y'all are way more dangerous than we do things over here. We said people look out for us, and safety and hazmat and people and all this other stuff. And the cultures just weren't mixing, and they just tried all of these different things to try to get the cultures to work with each other. And some people got frustrated, some people didn't. And then basically they got the unions came in and was trying to turn people into union people. And then it was like there was going to be this vote, and it was just this back and forth. Like, look, it was almost like, look, if we know somebody in here is for the unions, we want to get them out of here. But it's almost like you can't do it.
How that works.
It was so, but people would just like in the middle work, have on union shirts. So they would pick out the people and know which ones that they had to watch out for. And there was just this vote at the end. And I'm not going to tell you, that's kind of like the climax of the movie, but there was a vote. And at the end of the day, people made a decision either to unionize or not to unionize. And they went on from there. It's actually very enlightening. And it also gives you a look at Americans where people, if you're a person that says, oh, Americans are great, we do great things all the time. If you look at that, you might say, wait, well, those people probably aren't going to say that, but it gives you a look to see like, y'all may not be as great as you think you are. You're not that productive all the time.
Y'all are not the height of productivity or the height of effective, efficient work or anything.
No.
All the time.
No.
That's a healthy dose of reality for us. Like, we did this so in World War II. That did happen, but we can't pretend that's the norm for everybody in America all the time. Let's not pretend.
Yeah. And you see,
it's not everybody's story.
True. Yeah. It's just a story. But there's a issue there. There's an indicator there that to me, there's just something that shows you, hey, we've done something wrong, because the culture was not that it wasn't productive. It wasn't productive at all in these systems, right? These people, it's almost like they didn't want to work, They're looking for excuses not to work. They're like, oh, we get off for this and we get off for that, and we don't do this and we don't do that and all. And this just shows to me the babification of American people, the babyfying of them. You know,
I mean, there's a lot of learned helplessness, and there's a lot of reward for that we've allowed. I mean, that system allows, we'll say. And unions can cater to that if they so choose, and some have.
Hey man, I mean, look, see, this is why, like when Tamisha was talking about balance, this is why I need a principle, because this is the only way that I can make a decision. And I have to put that principle on choice, because there is no real other way to, like, you could say, all right, government let them be that way, or we've set it up that way. And I'm like, safety concerns are legitimate concerns.
They are.
Right? But people can not really care about safety concerns and think that this is just an opportunity to not have to do anything and get paid for it.
Get paid.
Yeah.
Like, I have safety concerns. Excellent. We're going to take precautions. We're going to get the work done. Nope. We're going to do no work. And then I want to be getting paid. And no precautions were taken. Like, so you're not concerned about the work. Clearly, we have different goals now. Anyway, that is telling. When people respond in this way, I think that's just very obvious.
I would say that to me I would kind of say it's unfortunate, but
it's not wrong, a tendency for people to seek the easiest path and try to get something for nothing. So, I mean, it's up to them.
Well, see, here's the thing with that, Josh. Like, to me, that's humans. That's what we do.
Like, what we do.
Even if that's what I do. I don't think we can escape. If we try to operate and say, oh, let's not do this, like, there has to be a reason. Like, I would like to sit home and do nothing and get paid. And then that way I could do all this extra stuff, you know, it would be just gravy. But it's just that I have an understanding of the full framework that it can't continue like that. It can't go on like that. It's not beneficial to the sustainability of a society, you know?
Right.
So,
yeah, everybody would like something positive or easy or fun. And that is not always available, and certainly not available for quote unquote free. Like, so someone is going to have to pay for that. And I think that is just as a helpful way. Like, we ought not reward or support, should reward or support laziness when there is a clear person trying to steal, trying to get paid for work that they didn't do. I think we should be able to do everything we can to stop that from happening, and certainly not reward it. We certainly shouldn't reward that kind of behavior.
Yeah. So this is kind of one of the things I've been grappling with over like the last week or two. I don't know that we see this differently. I don't know what it is. It's something about it. It's something that's just popping out about it, right? So to me, a lot of times you take the idea, right? The idea of grift or those different things. And I get the idea. But for me in my mind, I'm always trying to simplify it to the basic fundamental pieces. Like, where do you get the idea of grift from? Like, if there wasn't a cost for one individual, if one individual slacks and another individual doesn't, like, we wouldn't even have the idea of grifting, right? So I guess for me, I'm just trying to get to the simplest pieces and say, instead of saying like, don't allow people to grift, I'm more or less saying like, hey, you get all of the consequences of the way you interact with this person.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes. I mean, theft is immoral, theft is wrong, but it also doesn't practically work long term. We could have all these kind of, play kind of approaches to life, like, oh, we'll just have to see what happens. Like, if you steal from me, I am not going to allow you to keep stealing from me. If it happens once, you are no longer employed and certainly won't be able to get more money the next time, right? I'm not going to give you more money if you didn't do the previous job. That's not okay. Well, I'm part of a union and I can do whatever I want. You can say those words, but like, the result is the same. Even if you could take my money, I won't have it anymore after you have taken it. It's not that it does. That's how reality still exists. Like, no matter how many times you want to steal, after you've stolen the stuff, you will have stolen it. There's no more now.
Yeah. Yes. So once again, maybe this is a tick, whatever they call it, is a knack or whatever it is. It's just my mind is always focused on a certain thing. So like when she's talking about, to me, she's talking about oh, maybe these don't have solutions. I'm always thinking about ethical societal solutions, right?
Right.
And the idea of these things, when you just use the idea without the basis for the idea, then I find that problematic. I always find it problematic because basically there's this idea that had origins in reality, but you've dismissed, and I'm not talking about you, I'm just talking about a lot of people. When they use the idea without the origins, they're using this idea disconnected from the actual things or the actual roots of this idea. So grifting is bad because it causes me to lose my ability to take care of myself because you've, taken advantage of the situation, or we don't have a mutual value exchange, right? If it was a mutual, so that's the whole reason why this idea is bad. And it's something that I'm just trying to work on with. I'm trying to understand why does this always pop out to me? Because I think a lot of times we use words or we have concepts or frameworks that we use that are disconnected from the actual motions of life that begat these concepts.
Okay. Yeah, but we have to go say, yes, stealing has a bad outcome, but theft is bad because it is a violation of the internal principles of individual rights. So I think that individual property gives us the principle, like the bare minimum floor to start from, and then say, oh, by the way, also, the logical outcome of this terrible thing you did when you violated my rights was made it impossible for you to live and also actively hurt me.
Yeah, it starts at the base, right? Yeah, that's true. I'm thinking of it, man, and I think I'm just having difficulty. I think it's just my lack of being able to articulate this point that I'm talking about. If I were to explain the way that I'm perceiving it right now, these ideas are straight lines, and what I'm trying to do is represent both ends of the stick when I talk about the concept. I don't want to say, oh man, love your neighbor. And it's like,
right? It's not
okay. What does that mean? Oh, there's value exchange here. There's social equity here. That there's I think mutual value exchange is a better way to explain it in a sense. Oh, this is the basis for love. Oh, this, values, I get to enjoy values or camaraderie or anything like that. I want to know the basis and the idea itself. It's almost like an understanding of reality and the concept for me, And I think that it makes it easier to explain to people who may not understand. Like there are a lot of people who use concepts who really don't understand the basis of the concept. They just use it. And nobody ever tried to explain it to them. Nobody ever said, hey, no, this stealing is wrong because this is what happens. This, you're doing the thing, I'm doing the thing, I'm doing the good thing,
Yeah. Undesirable outcomes exist. Those.
But people start getting into, well, insurance will pay for it.
It's like, as if that's relevant. So what we're doing here.
Even if you wanted to take it, you convoluting the picture for no good reason. But people love to bring up ancillary things for no good reason. So, there's insurance. Yeah, but when people pay out that insurance, what do you think is going to happen to the premiums? But
right. Where does insurance get that money? What has to happen? Okay, in order for the truck company to stay in existence, other people to get paid out, then they have to take more from someone else, right?
Right.
Or that's one.
So it's context dropping a lot of times, but I don't think we do a good job of providing context for people. I think, so to try to neatly clean up my thought as best as I can, ideas to me are infinite straight lines, but sometimes the context that we give is long-term context, and I want to give them a more short-term context because I don't think that everybody can always grasp the the insurance pays for it, but what about the premiums? Hey, that's too far for me to think. I don't.
Yeah, frankly, I'm not here for that. I'll be good today. I get some money coming in. I might even get a stimulus check. This could be good. What about the rest of the things? It's like, I'm not here to think about consequences. This is my immediate consequence.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I'm concerned about. Feel good now.
And that's why one of the things I advocate for is to try to take the conceptual thinker down to a lower level. Like to get to engage with their lower self to say, oh, let me really act on these ideas. See, you violated me because I see how this act leads to that act leads to. Let me bring it full circle to you right now and present you with a consequence that is very immediate and very real, and so therefore you won't be confused at all about what we're doing here.
Oh, why won't you let me take it from? I need it. Whoa. I had a feeling deep down that this could be mine, and so now it is mine. Why did you stop? Took my stuff, man. You took my stuff. You don't need it, though. That's not the point. I will need it later when I get hungry tomorrow. You took my stuff now, so now I don't have it tomorrow either. Here, let me help you with that.
See, you better than me because I wouldn't even say that's not the point. Because to me, that's the end. This is when you start. Here's what's so fascinating to me, Josh. This is I'm gonna try to explain this. People who pretend as if they can't grasp these long-term consequences, when they want something, they can figure out all the goddamn context that they need to, man. They can, well, what about this? And what about that? But all I have to do is just do this. And all I got to do is go in the bank with a mask on and just do that. It's like, why didn't you just take that brain power and just apply it to some work or something? But they don't do that. They use their brain power to figure out how they can slip in through the back door. Like when they need something, like these people who are selectively dumb, it's like when you wanted that thing, you knew who to ask, where to go, how to get it. When you wanted those shoes, you know how to research for stores and all of these different things. Now it's like, oh, I don't know how to get a job. I don't know how to do. You can do all of those things everywhere else in your life. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's very selective. And I get it. Not everybody is strong in every area, but it's selective in a way that is unhelpful. People find ways to quote unquote take shortcuts, and all of a sudden get surprised when they get these stupid prizes. Play stupid games, don't get these stupid prizes. It's like, I don't know why. The rob and the stealing and the killing didn't work out. I thought it was going to be fine. I needed something, and I found something was right there. It was just in nature. I was walking along. It was right there in the store, and I just took it, and it was great. I fixed the problem. But now you want to joke just because I needed things, because I was hungry, and I still I'm like, whoa. You got a lot of context shopping. What about the rest of the people involved? But you took the stuff that was not yours from someone. You hurt someone for this.
You're right. Let me go grab. I'm gonna go grab some water real quick.
What?
That's crazy. Yo, Josh, to that point, man. I think this brings me to something I definitely wanted to discuss, man. Because you say context dropping, but in my mind, I'm like, we haven't given a lot of kids context. Like,
true.
The problem. So I'm watching this is a video yesterday. I watched for some reason a lot of videos about police cameras come up on my YouTube. I watch a lot of it, so it just gives me some insight into people. And the point that I'm coming to is, and I'm seeing this repeatedly, and this is bad, man. Black culture, we are intentionally mentally retarding our kids.
We're not helping them at all.
We are leaving them. Basically, this case I saw, this person, and I've seen this multiple times, where they really legitimately try to pull the race card on everything that happens in their life. It all go right.
That's what we taught them.
I mean, and they don't have any ability to grow because that's their go-to. Like, you're doing this to me because I'm black. Basically, like, somebody reported you speeding. Oh, I bet you that person was white. What? It's like, basically, you was just racing your brother and you killed 2 people in the car. And you lied. It's all on camera. And you're speeding. You're saying that I wasn't speeding. I wasn't racing. You got caught on camera racing. You've had speeding tickets in the past. And in all of these reports, you keep complaining. Well, many of these reports, you keep complaining that, oh, you pulling me over because I'm black. I can't, it hurts me because I'm like, this is what I mean about context, man, because we are intentionally we're giving the kids a context that is not going to help them at all in life.
At all. We're rewarding. Like they're seeing their parents get rewarded for it. They see people online making the biggest deal about it. They're like, okay, race is my identity now. Race is clearly the only thing that matters. I can use this for anything and everything. And if anybody disagrees with me, I'll just pull the race card, use this because clearly it's working for the people I look up to. That's not the goal. You're not solving your main issue. You're just, you're living on blame in a way that is not helpful. You're not going to be able to grow from this point because you're just pretending this is just a social issue. But while people are involved, that's not the reason. It's not the source.
I don't even know what benefits people are using this to get. Like, the only benefit I can see is that television, people are getting votes and televisions are getting more clicks, and ads and news stations are getting more clicks. But outside of that, I don't understand maybe some people get some jobs, to talk about DEI or whatever. But it's sad, man. We're mentally, we literally, in my mind, these are my words, we're mentally retarding the kids.
Yeah.
Because they have no context. They have no framework. You've put them in the middle of technological world. It's moving fast with computers, technology, and AI, all of these different things and different people and characteristics and personalities. They have no context to navigate through life successfully long term. Sad.
Yeah. And we could fix this. If we would change our system, we could change how things are done, in the sense that, like, if we don't like these outcomes, there must be a system in place that rewards these outcomes. If we don't like what we are seeing, we could change. Like, as a culture, there's an opportunity to change the systems that we have and stop rewarding people for saying the most crazy things as normal. Stop making the artists who talk about crime as the only option forward, or the whole idea of learned helplessness and blame as the main way to be popular. If those people weren't the ones we highlighted in our media and celebrated on our culture, then we would have we could send a different message to the kids growing up who really don't have the direction. They don't have the idea of what the rules are and how people actually do move through the stages of, complete dependence to independence to stability, vitality, in freedom. Like, they have no concept these even exist.
No, nothing. It's our fault. And it's our fault.
I mean, we also, like, you and I never got it out either. Like, it's our fault, but it's just like we've been handed a lot of horrible models as well.
Yes. I mean, yes, you have to seek it out. But I think a lot of times this is going to relate back to kind of what I'm trying to say, is that I think a lot of times people don't teach it in a way that's holistic. It's not comprehensive. It's very much, hey, here's an idea, and don't you accept this idea without the full context for the idea, and then you wonder why the children are cloudy about it. It's like, don't you want to be a good person? But I don't tell you what good is necessarily. I'm just telling you what we accept and look at each other as good people for. I mean, not any necessary reasons. This is acknowledgement. It's pretty much acknowledgement from the outside world.
Yeah, but good by what standard? And it's just like, I just want to be a good person. What do you mean? Look at me. Do what I do.
Yeah.
Okay. I could try that, but what if I don't know you? What if you leave at some point in time? How am I going to know what good is? What's the principle here? It's like, there is no principle. The principle is the person in front of you is telling you to do something. Obey or become another bad person. And so the lesson is obey. I don't know if I like this lesson.
Right.
What is the benefit here?
Right.
Like, it's crazy. It's unnecessary. Unless the person speaking to you has the clout and the ability to actively reward you for getting in their good graces, there's no motivation.
Right. There's no motivation. There's no real understanding there.
Nothing.
It's just that, man. But this is why this is an opportunity for me. And even though I'm not the greatest at articulating everything that I'm thinking, like, the idea, we need a full, comprehensive understanding of things. Because a lot of times when kids get this is almost like an empty education. When you're just giving ideas with none of the reasons that support the ideas.
Right.
Why would I don't disagree with them when they say, like, man, this is just obedience. This is just obedience to something, to this idea that really has no real context to it or reason or why wouldn't we just discard these ideas? But let's just do it a different way. I can see why they think why that would be a thought, because it almost is just obedience or disobedience.
Yeah. And that's when you give people these directives without context, it is really just them following rules. And so they're just learning these different rule books based on whatever person they're talking to at the moment, which is super right up. Long term, it does not work out at all.
Hey, man. that's why for me, like I think maybe somebody or people did present it in this way. I don't think that oh man, no, I don't want to say something I don't necessarily know that what I'm saying. I just don't have the sense that we've applied these things, that we've educated a generation or educate people in a fully comprehensive way. I think that a lot of times people speak with words and they just assume that the other person gets it. They just have these concepts like, hey, what this is good, this is bad, and this is rich, and this is not, and I just don't. It becomes empty at some point to me, especially when we're talking about morality, because you got a lot of people who make decisions that you're like, well, if I were to just do what I want, I wouldn't make that decision. If you're making choices in life that I wouldn't make at all, and you're not giving me full context of why you're making this decision, like why are you resisting your urges? Why are you doing that thing? If nobody gives you a legitimate reason, I would be like, I don't think I would resist my urges like that. That's a good idea.
Like we're gonna have this discussion differently. Nah,
as an example, like the way the Catholic Church approached like sex and marriage in some ways, right? Like to me, that's exactly what I mean when I know that that's religion. I know. But to me, religion and intellectuality are related because it's the eternal. I'm hoping I'm making sense here. It's just this whole idea of doing things, and they take it too far. You've gone too far beyond your capacity as a human in a sense. And I think, and this is my opinion, that would you repress sexual urges or repress sex for life, or don't ever get married and think that this is a healthy way to live life? I just don't think that that's realistic in any way.
Right. That's clearly not worked out for the majority of people on earth. And so like it used to work where people would go through their life, have kids, have a family, raise it, and then they would go into the priesthood after all that. And then there's like, all right, the last, 20 or 30 years of my life, I'm not going to fuck anybody else. All right. I get it. All right. That makes sense. But like, one guy, people start doing this. Like, I don't know if this is helpful. I get it. You want to dedicate the majority of your effort for the one film, but like this one thing that you're doing involves a lot of people, and you're not at a place in your life where you've spent all these efforts outward, where you've demonstrated enough self-control to where I go like, oh yeah, you could be good for the rest of your life. You barely made it this long. Unlikely you're going to be good for the rest of your life. Anyway, all I'm saying is that repression is never the answer. Ignoring the problem, neglecting the issue never makes the issue go away. And so when people make that a standard approach, there cannot work. This has to fail. Please don't do it this way.
Yes. Yeah. It's not only is it, yeah, it's not, it is going to fail, but people attempt it. It becomes a goal, a pursuit.
Right.
And I don't know, man. Like, I'm going to have to work on this idea a lot more, because it's in my mind. I can see it. I can kind of, it's faint. It's like, because I'll say it like this, man. A lot of times we have a conversation, Josh, and you'll make a point. And it's not that I disagree with your point, but I'm like, oh, because I'm thinking about ethics and how to teach people, I'm thinking like, oh, if I go there, it's going too far. When I make things moral concerns, so like when I'm talking about ethics, it's very much about human and humans, right? But sometimes you'll say, well, this is a moral concern because this is about the individual, and the individual doesn't have life this long. I'm like, like to me, you've gone too far. That's the sense that I get, because I'm like, oh, now this is the step that you step in the door, that you leave the door open for other people to make determinations with other people's lives. See, when you get in that far, now you've undercut any ethical position from a principle standpoint. Be like, hey, no, you don't injure or offend others. Now we're like, oh no, but let me step into your life and tell you what's best for you. And that's a door that I can't in good faith go through from if I'm trying to come up with these ethical conceptions, because I think that violates it violates or destroys my ability to come up with these ethical conceptions.
Interesting. So I don't see it that way, but I hear what you're saying. Like when I go that far and I start making prescriptions for other people, that's the same, that could be taken as a violation of someone else's will or right, whatever, because I'm saying like, this is what I would recommend. And so that's a bridge too far. We don't have to go there. We don't have to have that discussion yet. We can keep the discussion all in the individual point and just saying, this is what logically works out for an individual as a principle, and stop. Is that what you're saying? Or I'm misunderstanding?
I was on board to the last part, right? I'm just thinking about interactions between individuals. That's my concern. It's almost as if anything that you do with your life outside of this is whatever, that's all there for you, right? But I need to be able to draw clear lines. I can't go into your life and draw clear lines. I can't tell you that you can't do this or you can do that, but I can tell you that.
Start with, I shouldn't do these things if I want this to work for me, and stop. And then have a principle of self-responsibility be there in regards to rights and needs. And that could be a starting point. And if we want to apply to interactions with the people, then we could start mentioning that just as it's wrong for me to try to imagine someone else is going to come in and save me and operate my life for me, make my decision for me, it'd be just as wrong for me to find somebody else and try to do that to them. And that's a roundabout, or at least another way, an alternative to effectively demonstrate that same point without being so direct. Look,
I think I got stuck on the self-responsibility piece because I don't find that to be an individual concept. I think the whole idea of self-responsibility only comes from an individual navigating in a society, right? Because you wouldn't even consider, if you were by yourself, you wouldn't even think about self-responsibility. You wouldn't have good outcomes unless you were self-responsible, right?
But that would be the starting point, is to say, like, you are responsible for yourself. And until you take that responsibility for your own, like, meeting your own needs, wants, and desires, then you won't have anything. But yes, you have to do those things for yourself. Otherwise, you won't have those things. And I think that is kind of where I'm getting that point. But you're right. Definitely when you interact with other people, that's where the self-responsibility becomes much more important.
Yeah. And maybe I wish I could just identify what the issue that I'm having is, because is it just that I only care about what I call ethical concerns? Because for me, when I separate ethics and morality, to me, I think ethical concerns are about the group interacting with the group, how to be more within the group. And I think moral concerns are really individual in the way that you want to go about your life. And that emotion is involved, solely there. Well, mostly there. And these things, interact and inform each other, in my opinion. But like I said, when I'm trying to come up with these ethical conceptions, like, I never want to cross that lane, because as soon as I open the door, that's the back door that all the collectivists come in. Once you don't fully act on the principle, hey, it's, personal autonomy. Once you start going, well, but you really should do this. And not that you can persuade them, you know what I'm saying? But to me, if you're like, nah, man, we got to come in for the good of you and do this. Well, here we go. Might as well be a communist. I might as well be a statist. I might as well. Why not? If I'm going to go in your house and do one thing, why not go in your house and do two things? So that's how I look at it.
I hear you. I'm really going to have to revisit this up, or we can talk about it now. If you can explain to you like I was child, like a small 5-year-old, that would be phenomenal. I want to, when you say this part X, that makes me think about this one backdoor like you mentioned today.
I mean, the whole premise of I am going to do what's best for you. I am going to.
When does that happen? When does it happen in a conversation?
I'm saying that when I would, if you would have said, so let's set some definitions, I guess, right? When you say morality, right, you more or less saying like for the longevity. Can you explain your perspective on morality, just to make sure? Because I think a lot of times you talk about the longevity of life and
the long-term best interest. That is, I think when I say morality, I mean something that's going to extend your life for the long term.
Okay. So if I go, where do dangerous sports, extreme sports fall into this? Is this my enjoyment or is this a threat to my long-term existence?
I mean, everything in the world has risks, and some things have more risks than others. And if you're going to do dangerous sports, I mean, there are ways to do it, I guess, if you take precautions that you stay alive so you can do the dangerous sports tomorrow. And some people do those precautions and they're fine. And some people don't, and they are not alive for tomorrow. And I'm like, when they're not alive, I'm like, they did not take the right precautions. So anyway,
Can you know that?
I mean, we can't always know that. We don't have absolute knowledge. All we can say is that some people did this poorly and died. We can say, don't do that. Don't do that. That was an immoral decision. When they did it and died, we're like, oh, those are limits. We now know human beings can't jump up a hill or a mountain this high and land on the ground safely. Didn't work out.
See, I think this is where I'm missing, because I don't think life is like that. I think some people can do this and survive. Some people can do this and don't, and not. I think we need a better principle to judge on this. Because like my next example was going to be the submarine that went below a certain level in the sea, and the guy that imploded a couple of years back. So I'm assuming that this is I wouldn't say necessarily new technology, but new ingenuity. Oh, we've got a new capability. We're exploring new depths. Where does innovation come from if we don't push lines from your standpoint? Like, people are going to have to die when we innovate. This is how this works. You know what I'm saying?
No, I don't know if every risk has to be taken by people in a way that involves death, but some risk, yes. So there will be death. That is going to happen regardless.
Yes. Yeah. So, but I mean, there are risky things. Like, to some people, they might not even think it's risky. To people that jump off of cliffs with, and that's probably a bad example, but
they are allowed to do it. They just can't force other people to do it or make an argument. I'm going to do this because it's moral. I'm like, no, you're going to do it because you feel like it. That's different. You're allowed to do it. No one's going to stop you doing it. But like, when you make the argument, we should all do it. That's where I'm like, no. We're just going to all make decisions. And some people's decisions are going to be based on evidence. You don't have any evidence yet. You're just doing stuff. You can also test your theory in a non-lethal way. That's possible. But I don't feel like that. Cool. You don't have to do it that way. But I can't pretend we're on the same equal playing field here. Like, you don't have any evidence, and your risk is outside the bounds of what I think is your risk is outside the bounds of what your body can handle. And you won't know that until you put it through this completely risky test, which may not need to happen this way. Because it seems like we're having a different conversation because we're applying this principle differently. Like, morality, to me, I think, is something that leads to a long-term best interest. And I think, like, if you can identify your needs and identify the things that promote the meeting of your needs, that makes sense when you pursue activity along those lines. And I'm like, great. I think that's how I define morality. And then, like, ethics, you mentioned, is with people. Like, you have an interaction with other people, and you are doing something that works out to both your long-term best interest, or at least doesn't harm the people you're around.
Right.
Which I'm like, all right, you didn't harm anybody. That's ethical enough. I can start with that. So I think that's fine between morality and ethics. When it comes to being prescriptive and telling people what to do, all I can do is point to evidence and say, if you want to live, I recommend not doing the things that killed other people. People are still going to make their own choices, but I will recommend it. It's like, oh, I mean, you can do whatever you want. But last time someone did that, it didn't work out for them.
So so here's my thing. Like, when I'm talking about ethics, I guess it's prescriptive and it's strict too. Like, I want to be able to say, hey, this is how we should do this thing. Because somebody's already doing this. Right. There's already consequences for certain things. And so there's actually penalties to be paid with this. Like, yours is more or less like, I want to shake a finger at you. And I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Or, you know what I mean? It's not concrete. Not concrete is not the word. Like, you're saying, like, hey, this is what I suggest. I guess it's persuasion, but I also would say, even more than persuasion, I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong, to be honest, because it's like, if you want to have kids and another person doesn't want to have kids, how do you make this determination? How do you say this is a good thing? Like, everybody has their own values and things that they like. So, and how can you approach telling somebody about their individual life you can't approach it without your context. This is my life. Hey, if I were you, I would do this thing, but I'm not you.
While it is my context and my bias, I can point to the evidence of reality and be like, I wouldn't do this because it doesn't work. You shouldn't do this because it doesn't work. I will do what I want. That's cool. But my stance is I'm not going to do this because it doesn't work. And I think that is a difference point. I think that is principle that like, if we have evidence, I can use the evidence and say like, I won't do this because of the evidence.
Okay. And I'm just thinking about, that's why I bring up the example of extreme sports, because for some people it didn't work. And for some people, it was fine and they enjoyed the life. You know what I'm saying?
So in that sense, that became a preference because I'm like, this wasn't life threatening for self. So therefore, there is a way you can do this route. I recommend you do it well. I mean, or don't. But that seems like there was a way that you could do it well.
So it's always retrospect. So it's always
I can't make prescriptions without evidence. It has to be retrospective in that sense. All I'm saying is that like the standard, the criteria that I'm using is the long-term best interest of the individual. And so like if the individual did something and it worked out for their long-term best interest, I'm like, okay, we have evidence now. I can prescribe something. If I have nothing, you're like, oh, this is a new field and we're just guessing. Like, I don't have anything. I have no morality I have no evidence to base my morality on. At this point, we're just saying evidence is something we don't have, so we should go get some. Like, fair enough. Let me know when we have some.
So let me ask you this. Is individuality a good thing because it's in the best interest of the individual or because it's a proper principle to live life by?
Right. It's a proper principle to live life. Like it is the only principle that allows for life. Like I think that is it's like a precondition. It's a precondition of life. If we want to have society, then we have to appreciate the individual and defend their rights. Otherwise, there is no society. At least not a just society or a moral society, because you can't have people live for their long-term best interests if they don't even know what their interests are. They don't even have a self to decide.
Okay. Yeah, maybe another time. I think I probably have to stew on that one again because I do worry. So I think you're right. So I think the issue comes in because I'm saying I am trying to come up with an idea for explicit action. And it sounds like yours is more of a judgment. But it doesn't necessarily have to. There's no action necessarily. Hey, you're doing an immoral thing over there. Oh, you died. Wow, that was immoral. That was kind of evidence, or whatever you call. And for me, I'm like, oh no, what do I do? What am I going to do? And I don't necessarily want to do something, but I see that things are happening between individuals. Someone is imparting their judgment or, influence on the situation. And to me, this is the more important piece. Like humans interacting with each other or imposing themselves on others is the issue. Like if you mess up your life on your own and nobody jumped in, I'm like, well, he made bad decisions.
There you go. That bad decision is a judgment. And so I think that's where I come in on the moral piece. Yes, that is the judgment piece.
Okay. Yeah. I guess for me, that's what I mean about the ethical conceptions. Like I am literally like, hey, how should we do this thing? How should we go about this? Oh, if we come up with ideas, just like talking to me, she's just like, oh, for the overwhelming humanity of people.
Right.
I don't like, so are you telling me that I should tell companies they can't have or can't use technology in a certain way because of someone's idea of humanity? I want to know what is the there? What am I supposed to do? That's what I want to know. If I'm in a position of influence, a position of power, how do I take this concern and turn it into a procedure, action, or some type of prescription?
Right. I think that requires more clarity and more background than we delved into. But because that's a good point. Say the problem you're trying to solve is what is the proper action in this context? I'm like, okay, great. that requires us to research this issue and understand what businesses are for and how they operate. And I think there is a strategic clarity on how companies can effectively scale. And I think that's what technology does. It increases efficiency and allows for the company to now scale differently. And I think that is the part that would be helpful to have that specific, like what we do is what the principle is. Like most companies are aiming to survive. So if the goal is either to grow or die, then the only way to grow is to effectively decrease your expenses, increase your profit, and use the margin to do the next thing that's going to add enough value to increase your profit again. And this is what technology allows us to do. It gives us the opportunity to decrease our expenses even further, so that people we used to do the things that cost too much can now be retrained to say, all right, we have R&D. Let's do a bunch of projects into this market to figure out what they're going to pay for, and let's dedicate a whole new place and build a whole new system to get these goods and services to this new market, or these new goods and services to the market that they're going to pay for in a way that's going to increase the grand profit of this entire endeavor we're calling our business.
I mean, so from my standpoint, because of the constraints of my thinking or ethics, whatever, I'm like, you overcomplicated this, because that was a tactical way to strategize. Like if you're running a business, I get it. These are the things that you're going to do. And if I'm talking about how this relates to the individual, I almost don't care about any of it. You know, I'm more or less thinking like, because here's the thing: you've got humans. Let's assume that these humans are autonomous. They should be, but let's say that they are.
Let's say it.
If you implement these technologies without respect to your workforce, without respect to the consumer, you pay a price.
Yeah.
As long as you can't coerce the consumer to buy your products, and you can't coerce the worker to work for you, you're going to have to operate with respect. You're going to have to make decisions with respect to these dynamics. So I don't have to overcomplicate it. I'm just saying, like, hey, people have choices. They may not choose you anymore. If you do this wrong, there's your incentive. You do this wrong, you lose your workforce. You lose your customer base. You know, and there are also laws that are good, or some are good, that you can get sued. You know what I'm saying? And have financial consequences. So you better make decisions with respect to these dynamics. And in a world where people will celebrate autonomy and individualism, that's even better, because the whole point of it is that you are going to be a result of your decisions. It's all there for you. You can either capitalize or you can squander it. But these people are going to make decisions based upon what you do, and choose wisely. That's all I can say.
Yeah. I mean, your main goal is to actively satisfy your customers' needs. And one of their needs is to feel like they are supporting you in a way that is in line with their values. You go and you violate their values, they may not feel very good about supporting you.
Right. Yeah. But I guess to me, the takeaway from what I was thinking about and what you were talking about is that there's no need to overcomplicate it from an ethical standpoint for me, because it's like individuals have choice. They can make choices, and therefore we don't have to get into the idea of businesses. What is business for? Business can't be for anything. I wonder if that sounds stupid. I don't know. I'm pretty sure that you understand what I mean. Businesses aren't for, and if it's not for people and for our goals, it's not like businesses don't do anything if they don't serve our values, if they don't serve our goals. They aren't for anything except for to serve what we want them to serve.
So the goal of business, the purpose of business, is to meet the customer's need.
Customer, owner, all of the people involved, the worker, the customer, the owner, the investor, all of those people. And that goes for every object. And this is to me where the flaw in like environmentalism is. Like, oh, the planet, we need to save the planet. What the hell do I care about the planet if it's not serving me? If the planet didn't serve humans, we wouldn't care about the planet. We don't care. I'm saying
it's like, okay, like what needs to happen? Like how though? Like we all agree we want the planet to be here so that we can all be here.
Right.
I don't think anyone's gonna bite you on that. We all did that. That's how we got to this point. Yep, we all agree on that point. Why are you? Why is there so much confusion or pushback? And they say like, I want to save the planet, therefore you can't do your job. I'm like, this way. You don't like the way people do this job. You really have to finish that sentence, otherwise people get concerned. I don't like doing the job anyway. I'm not here for fun. It's work. Aim to work so I can eat.
Yeah.
You just said, I don't like you eating. I will stop there. I'm gonna probably still eat. You get to the point there when people running out, I'm going to use this tractor and run you over. So please don't get in the way of me eating. It seems like we have a difference of opinion on how to do this. And that's a different conversation. Use your words. Give me solutions to our mutual problem. We both need the planet. We both are using the planet. You just want to use the planet a little bit differently. Okay. How? Different how?
I mean, that's best case scenario.
Right. That's asking a lot. That's not happening. But I'm just saying.
But the thing that concerns me is that in the extroversion piece, people think that value is intrinsic in the object. Value exists in the planet itself. Like if there was a planet with no humans, it would be great. No, you wouldn't care.
Right.
It wouldn't even
take that to certain relation.
Right, but people get into this thing like it's the intrinsic nature of objects. Oh, I care about the planet for itself. No, you don't. You care about the planet for its use to you and the people that you like and love and want to be around. That's the whole value of the planet. Oxygen, all these things, water, everything. They're not doing the full, as you call, root cause analysis or the regression all the way back to the source. They're not really understanding that all values are for humans. There's no value without humans. And so therefore, we're just balancing these other things.
Yes. You cannot lose sight of a value to whom or what. If you try to have values divorced from the source, it does not make sense, but it doesn't work out. Like you will get to a point where you will start losing any tether to reality. And that just makes the point so practical.
Right.
Like, yeah, we want to do this part. So we want to protect the planet by removing all the threats to the planet. But what if people are the threat to the planet? We're a mover too, because government,
that too.
And it matters. Matters. I'm a people and you're a people. So now your thing is wrong. We're going to need not be in this conversation anymore. You have become a threat to the people on the planet. And that is the part that frustrates me the most, is the fact that we can't put that in a really succinct conversation on when random environmentalists go and threaten companies. I'm like, this is someone's livelihood you are threatening. And this company is actively solving a problem that we need solved. You are a threat to the people of the planet now. Stop that.
Right.
We're not going to support that.
And it's misaligned. One of the biggest frustrations with what you just explained is that he'd be like, hey, if y'all were so concerned, there's places in society that you could serve better. You could do this better. Like, yeah. If you're concerned that people work in coal mines, the best thing for them is not to shut down their jobs and have them be poor and have no way to eat. Maybe you would like to help them develop better coal mines or ways of coal, mining.
Your own coal mine. Go ahead and find new ways to do this in a way that is safe and sustainable. There are lots of ways to help solve this problem. But anyway, yes, people don't do that. They don't start there. They don't have that conversation, and they don't act in that way, which is super frustrating.
Absolutely.
And we let them get away with it. Like, we support people, and like they raise money, and we give them money to keep doing this thing this way. I'm like, this is a terrible way to do this. Or make them popular. We put them in some of our most, highest tier media. And I'm like, oh, we are not helping at all. People pay for this kind of media exposure. We're giving it away for free. What is wrong with you?
I mean, I understand. Part of the problem with that is that it's not yes versus no. It's yes versus everything else. What do I mean by that? I mean, like, autonomy and self-direction. And you don't have to be somebody who says, no, I'm a determinist. You can just be agnostic. And you're part of that other side too. And so that's why you inadvertently support all of these things maybe not all of the time, but sometimes. And so we can't necessarily say, well, how did they get here? No, that's how they got here, because you didn't actually put anything there. You let anything just pop up there. It's not directed. So, and I want to get back to that book that I was talking about earlier, but this now reminds me of, like, I don't know, I think I talked about this in here, about the never ending story. All right.
Yeah.
And like, I always when I'm talking to people, I'm always thinking, like, did you saw it, right? I might be repeating myself, but you saw this movie, right?
Yes. And it's a very appropriate point.
And so let me ask you, do you remember the villain from the never ending story?
Yes. Great nothing.
Exactly. So like, a lot of people, if they don't know, they probably think that the villain is the big cat, right? The Taiko or Black. Yeah, Beaufort. That's what Beaufort or whatever his name was. But he's not really the villain. The villain is the nothing. And the best part about the nothing is pretty much the nothing is when people don't have dreams and desires and goals. That's the takeaway from the movie for me. It's like,
it kills.
You say what?
Apathy kills, or passivity kills.
So that's the nothing. The nothing is we're not creating any direction. We're not creating life. Like, we need you to make decisions. We need you to have goals. We need you to have dreams. That's what builds all of the great things. That was what the whole book was about. Go out and dream. Go out and be. Go out and do. And then when people stop dreaming, everything starts dying. Everything starts becoming bias. Everything starts becoming nihilism. And it's just nothing. And nobody knows what it is. And this is what I mean. I just equate it to what we're dealing with now. It's the nothing. It's the music it's the musicians that you don't know any of their music, who sell lip gloss called gonorrhea and period sex. And it's nothing. You know what I'm saying? It's like, whatever your mind can, hey, I just thought of this, put it up there. Oh, I've thought it's nothing. That's all I can say, man. That's why it just makes me think of that movie, man, because people just don't get it. You have to fill life with things, because there is nothing.
Nature abhors a vacuum, and if you refuse to create something of value, the absence of value will take its place and ruin things. Like, this is terrible. Like, yes, nothing good to fill here. So now that we have terrible, see, that's how they work. We wanted not terrible, then we should have put good here. We didn't put anything good in here. Now we have nothing.
Exactly. But it's almost counterintuitive. I think people just think something exists just because.
It's just there. It's always exists. It'll be raised.
So that's I'm glad he jumped through that real quick. I wanted to run, because I brought this up earlier, and I wanted to run this past you. It's a little difficult because I was listening to this book. I'll tee it up real quick. It's this book called The Art of Self-Awareness by Patrick King. I like this book, and so I'm re-listening to this book. Excuse me. And I can't remember exactly where I am, but there's a couple things in the book that I really like naming your emotions, which is very important. This is a super important thing, right, to me, to the ability to name your emotions, to really understand what they are.
Yeah, labeling is key. The ability to acknowledge and label yours effectively, like, that's where things start. That's what words are for. It's to give us that clarity.
Yeah. And so what he does, so in the midst of this book, he starts to get into this, and I should have just bought, I'm going to buy the book so I can kind of do a whisper sync. I might try to buy it right now, but we'll see how that works out. So the way he goes into a system of thought by some psychologists, or therapists or psychologists or whatever, I can't remember his name. It's like Heidegger or something like that. It begins with H. And he starts kind of like going through these different stages of psychological development. And he's saying that throughout these stages of life, there's a change between the subject and object, right? So he's saying, like, when you're a child, you begin with the world as a subject. Like, you don't necessarily see yourself separate from the world. The world just exists and you're just a part of it and these different things. And I'm hoping that kind of like, as I'm talking about this, maybe you'll see like this is parallel or right in line with what I was kind of getting at in the book as well. So the second level is you see yourself as a separate being. So it's like individuation from a Jungian standpoint, in my opinion, right?
Right.
if I look at the first one, I'm thinking more of a extroverted, irrational standpoint. A little different, but you don't see it as separateness necessarily, and it's still not necessarily conceptual, very perceptual, but then you individuate. So you can individuate on a perceptual level from my understanding and Jung, right? And that would be your introverted, irrational level in a sense. And then he was saying, and it's the next step where, basically you enter the world of ideas, but you really you can't agree with something unless you know other people agree with it first, right? It's very much like, hey, I have a thought, but do people think this thought? If they don't think it, then just get it out of here. But if other people think this thought, then this is a good thought. And then it's almost like he called it a level. It's an obedient level. At a level of obedience, which is kind of interesting because if you think about, it's just another book called The Law of Peoples by John Rawls. And so he talks about, decent peoples and liberal peoples. And so to me, decent peoples is kind of equivalent to obedient peoples. Like, don't necessarily come up with these rules, but I can follow them and, apply them. Then he was saying, then it's another level. It's a person who is, I guess, fully individuated, where it's like this person he is not, or she is not her relationships. She has relationships. You know what I'm saying? So she can these things exist apart from them, whereas though the earlier stages, they didn't necessarily exist apart from those other, a person may be a dad. Well, they might say father is what I am, or another person was like, I can't remember the actual language that he used. That is one of his roles. That's something that I do. One of the concepts defines the person and holistically. The other one kind of like picks these ideas up to interact with them, right? So then he goes through that part, and he was like, yeah, only 35% of people reach this level. So this is like level 4, right? And so in my mind, I'm tracking basically with my personality types. I'm going from like an extroverted irrational to an introverted irrational to an extroverted irrational to an introverted rational, right? Because this person has an individual experience. You are not these roles. You pick these roles up. You have these roles. You have choices. You have these different things. This is that kind of mentality. And so, but then he goes into this last part and he was like, yeah, only 1% of people get to this level. And I think his name was Heidegger. I think that's his name. The philosopher or psychologist. And he was like, yeah, this is the highest level. This means you are completely objective. And I don't have to put it in my own language because I can't necessarily remember everything, but pretty much it's something similar to what we were saying before. It was like, you go over here, you look at this framework, you pick it up, you use it, you put it down, but you're not beholden to that framework. You may go over here, use Christianity, pick that up, put it down, go back over to Buddhism, pick that one up, put it down. And then sometimes you may go and use all of them together. It's like basically he's saying it's almost like you can operate without a context. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, I'm like, wait a minute. I was with you on the first 4 steps here, but this is BS. To me, this is nonsense, right? Because
it is nonsense, but why is it nonsense?
Well, oh man. Well, hold on. Ask me that question in 5 seconds.
Check.
This to me gives me insight into the people who think that they are super, super smart.
Yes.
It's just like, I have context from a contextless position. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, so this is why I'm like, oh, this is why the philosophies and the psychology or psychological philosophies are trash at some point, because this is nonsense. But why is it nonsense? Because there's no individual at the base of this thing. It's not even before you even get to no individual being at the base of these things. Like, it's just faulty. Like, for one, there's just no way to live without a context. How did you even understand any of these frameworks? How did you know that they worked for anything? Like, I don't even understand that part of it. There's no base, there's no individual at the base of it. So there's no self to me in any sense. And then the last part of it is that this would just be too intellectually taxing, right? This is like, it's just, you have no way to give your brain relief this is a thing. I know this is a thing because I learned this is a thing. This is the framework that I'm using for this thing. But I'm going to approach everything like, I don't know what this thing could be. I don't have any idea. It could be in Spanish. It could be, I don't know. It's just, everything is its own thing. So for me, all of these things are flaws. And I just wanted to kind of like discuss that real quick because I was with the guy through the first 4 steps. I'm like, okay, this makes sense to me. But to say that this is the top, the only 1% of people achieve this, I will hope that 0% of the people achieve that because that is garbage. So let me know.
Garbage. But see, so this whole thing has been like described by Ken Wilber, and he is like, wow, I guess it's just levels of human development. And so like level 1 is just you thinking, and then level 2 is you thinking about thinking, and then level 3 is you thinking about thinking. Level 1 is just like, this is my thought. Level 2, you can say like, okay, there are other people in the world, and this is my thought about them. Level 3 is like, this is my thought about what they think about me. And level 4, you're like, this is my thought about who we are in general, and these are where rules come from. So you get to level 4, you're finally able to start saying, okay, these are the rules we follow. These rules work so that we don't harm each other. I got it. Fair enough. By the time you get to level 5, you're like, all right, we need an objective standard here to figure out where these rules are coming from. Can't have my rules and your rules as this is too much nonsense.
Okay.
And so then you have some sort of objectivity, and you start getting some data. And then then you think about thinking. And by level 6, you're like, every place and every culture has their own cultural customs, and they have data to support those customs. Well, now no one knows. Now we're all just at this level of like, who can say? Because what works over here won't work over there, but what works over there won't work over here. So that level of ambiguity is confusing. And so that's where like America and most people like live. Like that's like the top of tier 1. But then finally, you should start thinking like, wait, some of these contextual standards or customs, even for each community / country, bump into an objective standard. All right, some of these things are better than the other. Some of them are universally better. Some of them are better in these contexts. Okay, I have a criteria that I can use now. So anyway, this goes all the way up to level 9, where you can finally just look around and like you realize how you can start analyzing how people are taking stock of their own situations in their own context, in their own culture, in their own blah, 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 blah. Anyway, you keep on expanding out until you expert things. But it's just interesting to me that people will even do the mental work of doing the thinking, started realizing that other people come from different contexts at all, but also that there are real world consequences for how you think. And those real world consequences are the objective data we have to use to compare what we're thinking about. And I think that is the main issue with it. Why the level 6, where we're all saying who can know what's true? Everybody has their own standard that works for them in their own little way. Why that level is where America is and why it's trash. It's that it's irrational. So yes, there's no individual at the center of it, but it's also irrational. They're not taking time to measure it against an objective standard or to say some of these things actually work well, correctly when they're done well. What does that even look like? Let's use the evidence of what actually does work as a standard instead of what I feel strongly about or what my culture likes the most. Like, yeah, we shouldn't even have gotten to a point of using what the culture feels like they like the most. Why was that even an option? Kidding. Rationality is hard. People don't use it, and people don't choose to think about their thoughts, think about those thinking, or evaluate their beliefs, and put their beliefs upon a rational basis. And because of that, it's really challenging to have these conversations with people who don't like doing all the thinking, or at least making sure that the things that they're going to say are going to line up with any form of reality.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's tough, right? Because I've got so many contexts that's swimming in my mind, right, about it. Because yes, I agree with you, but this is also kind of reminding me of this law of peoples. One of the perspectives of the law of peoples, which is a valid perspective, is that regardless of how you do things, there is a human dignity. You know what I'm saying? Regardless of how poor I grow up, I still want a level of respect and dignity, you know. And my methods, I may have poor methods. You know what? One of the things that pop up to me in my mind is I'm thinking about this. It's a guy. It's a country. I don't know. It's in Africa. They make wooden carts. no engine. They just carve up wooden carts and they're huge, and it's like, oh wow, this is great ingenuity. It's like, but it's not better than a car. It's not better than a motorized vehicle. You know what I mean? But I can see how you could take pride in this ingenuity and honing this craft over from generation to generation and all of those different things. And I get that. And I think that's what people are protective of when they feel like, oh, you all think that you're better. You're making judgments about us because we have these techniques of doing things, but this is our culture. This, this could be any culture. It's not just Africa, it's any culture, And I think what you're saying, like, it's right. It's a position that you can hold, but I wouldn't say, yeah, man, what you doing is stupid, man. We over here doing American stuff and it's way better. Or we're into China and we're doing this. I wouldn't say it's stupid. I'd be like, that's a cool thing. I wouldn't do that because it takes too long and it's not efficient. And I think there are better ways of doing that. But I don't want to, it's not embarrassed. The word's not embarrassed, really. It's
disparage?
It's not even just discourage. It's like, I don't want to belittle this person just because of this, hey, man, like, I mean, I don't know how excited I'm going to get about this. That's cool.
Hey, that's at this point, we're just allowing people to make their own choices. And that's starting. I think when they're like, my choice is just as good as your choice. I'm like, your choice is just as available as my choice. And we don't have to say any value judgment about it. We don't have to, because it doesn't, what my decision is only going to affect me and your decision is only going to affect you. I don't care what you do with your decision. Like this is not help. It's not relevant to me until I need you to do something. And then I come to you and I'm like, hey, I need this to get done. Deliver my food within 5 days. Well, the cart only gets there every few weeks. See, this is now why I'm that my way. And I will only give you money if you use my way. I don't hit your way. It just literally is slower. I don't.
Yep.
I'm not making a value judgment on you as a person. I'm just pointing out what I want, what I request. And you don't have to, this is not given as a directive. This is how we negotiate. But yeah, it's funny that people will take that and be wrong.
Yeah, it's just like when they say, so this, let me try to read this, man, because I just bought the book I don't know if I got whisper sick, hopefully. So I think so step 5 is what he calls the interconnected mind, right? So here are the steps. I'll just name the steps so the guy's name is Keegan. That's his name. And so the first one, so it's like 3 levels of self-awareness. Oh, this is something else now. I'm trying to figure out, okay, stage 1 and 2, the early stages. So it doesn't really name stage 1 and 2. I don't know why. So from early childhood or adolescence, or to be frank, adulthood for some. This is true. We'll consider the early stages only briefly, as they largely correspond to development. Okay, the earliest stage is incorporative. That's what he calls it. And there's little sense of self to speak of. So that's the first stage. So there's pretty much babies and everything. And so now around 6 years of age to adolescence is stage 2, called the impulsive stage. It's like the terminology, the exact terminology varies. So here the self is learning about impulses, but still very identified with them, right? And so to me, this is Jungian stuff, man. This is kind of like how I was talking about irrational. This is irrational to me. This is the irrational mind, introverted and extrovert. And so introversion being the second stage. So he gets into stage 3, which is the socialized mind, which is what I would consider rational extroversion. And so he's like, so from adolescence onwards, the subject is interpersonal relationships. The object has needs, interests, and desires. This is intrinsic nature of object. This is intrinsic, right? Because the object has needs. Objects can't have needs, right? So
the person is the object. How broadly is he defining object? Like at point, I'm like, no, objects, unless you consider people objects.
I mean, so this is what I'm saying. So I'm going to try to juxtapose it with the books. And what I was saying earlier is that when you have a rationally extroverted mind, the group is the subject. The whole, you don't separate yourself out from the group. It says subject is interpersonal relationships. So that's what I mean. Like, oh, we have to do this for the whole. Well, where's the individual in it? There's no real individual in, So that's that part. And the object has needs. The object, like we just said, the object, there's no intrinsic need. There's no need in the object. Only subjects can confer need on objects or value or anything on objects, really. Value and needs. So the next stage, so the stage 4 is the self-authoring mind, where subject is self-authorship, identity, and ideology. The object has relationships. So to me, this is the level of rational introversion. This is the, I am authoring my own path. And I'll give you a little bit of what he says here, and I hope it's not any copyright type of thing. It's like Keegan found that whereas around 65% of adults inhabit the previous stage, just 35% fall into this level. Here, a person may still not detach from their identities and Here, a person may still not detach from their identities and personal ideologies, even though they have made the realization they are not their relationships, but rather they have relationships. This is the level where we are no longer defined by others, by our society, by our relationships, or by our engagement with the environment. Instead, we self-determine. The big understanding is that we are autonomous humans with feelings and thoughts independent of others and the environment, right? So this is level 4. And I'm like, and I'm all on board with this because this lines up for me. This is like, this is typology in a sense. It's not that much different from what I've written about. But then it goes to stage 5, and this is the interconnected mind, which threw me. And I'm like, okay, step 5. Subject is, object has self-authorship, identity, and ideology. I don't know. So I keep going. It's like Keegan claimed that just 1% of people ever reach this stage. Here, the person's sense of self is not attached to any identities or roles. Instead, there's only endless exploration of potential identities, roles, perspectives, and engagement with others. The self is dynamic and ever-flowing, and we can spontaneously and repeatedly find balance in every emerging moment. We consider both inner experience and the feedback from others. We can appreciate and hold complexity without needing to collapse everything into a concrete, fixed set of concepts that we are then held prisoner to. To me, this is nonsense. This is
not depth. He's trying to describe adaptation, but he's forgetting that the only way you can adapt, the only way flexibility is if you have a really cohesive structure in the middle. Right. That is the requirement for adaptability. It's like, I can adapt to all these things because I have a system that already works. I just go back to the thing that works. And now sometimes I can incorporate these new things into the thing that works.
Exactly.
The thing that works has to be there. That's why you couldn't do it before, because you didn't have a thing that worked.
Oh, right, man. It just threw me. I'm like, all these, because the first 4 were good.
Yes. And that shows the limits and the boundaries of his thinking. He's like, all right, I can handle these concepts. And then when I got to adaptation, I was like, I don't know how this is happening. It's like I just magically come into a forward world and I do all these things. We're able to overgeneralizing now. Now we're just like, I flow like water and now I can do all these things. I'm like, you don't understand how adaptation works. I got you. That's fair. You let me know your limitations now. But this is something the editor could have we don't have to talk about this part. You clearly don't know anything about it. And it's not necessary to have this point. You just mentioned the fact that adaptation exists, that some people can get above the level of being trapped in their own one way of looking at things, that they have the ability to look at things in other areas, which is great. And you could just stop. You don't have to say anything about this.
I mean, but see, what he's doing, he's recounting Keegan's, the therapist's system.
I hear you. And that is scary and sad at the same time. And somebody else is like, yes, this is how I see adaptation. And like, it doesn't make any sense. And it can't be true. Otherwise, it would be useful. And it's clearly not useful.
I mean, but see, this is what I call the monkey mind. This is what I think about people who operate without context, even though they could only, like you said, only operate if they had context. It's just subconscious context in a sense, right? But here's where here's where I think the failure becomes in my mind. It's almost like I don't understand how the way that he went about it was almost like a bell curve. Like building up, you hit a peak. Oh, you fell off. It's like you went right back to the stuff that you said was the precursor for an elevated mind. You're operating in a vacuum. And here's where philosophy and here's where a belief system or something equivalent to that. This is where this is this is the level that's supposed to be. This is the context that you operate with everything, because this whole thing about we're just floating and we pick up things and we put them down and we're just adaptable. That is not. How can you have a successful overall psychological experience long term with this mentality? This is if it's so high level, who is the benefit of this mentality? Like, there's no self there. I don't know. This is why I think people just missed it. And this, like earlier when we were just talking about to Misha, it's that, you don't want to have these frameworks because these frameworks are limiting. Yes, they have levels. Certain frameworks only work at certain levels. Right. If you don't have any framework for life, I would say that's not a very fulfilling existence.
It's still not fulfilling to you, but regardless, it is not functional. If you have no framework, no mental models at all, you aren't good at this, and what you are doing works worse than other effective models. I'm just like, you are allowed to make whatever choice you want, but those choices have consequences. When the consequences are failure to solve your problems, you can't pretend that they're all equal now. Everybody can just do whatever. Like, they have ability to do whatever, but those things that they do have an actual effect on their life. And I just think that matters enough to mention, to start saying people have chosen differently and have gone their own ways. Certain people are able to reach this level of performance. Some people reach this level of performance. And that's enough for me. I'm like, at that point in time, we can allow people to make their own judgments of what they think is better or worse. So like, I don't have to tell you what's better. You now get to learn. I've let you know the information. You now can make your own judgments.
True. Yeah, I get that. And I think we're saying the same thing, but just kind of a little bit differently. Yeah, because, I mean, do people want to unfulfill? Is there anyone who wants an unfulfilling life? How could you?
So people value comfort over everything else. And so, I mean, I would say, no, of course not. No one would want to just give up in life and just have a life that'd be sad and terrible. Like, but if it was easy, though, I mean, they might do it. I know people who gave up because it was easy. But like, hey, if I go over here and get this job that I'm overly qualified for and like hide behind the person who is going to outperform everybody, I could like keep this job for a long period of time and like play games all day. But so life like that, they're like, I mean, I don't not want that life. Yes. Aren't you going to get to, I guess, won't there be long-term consequences that you would hate? I'm not thinking about that now. You're not. You're really not. And you refuse to let anybody else break in there and tell you to think about it. All right.
So I think that kind of relates to your question about what problem are we solving?
Yes.
And that's always at the root of it, because a lot of times, like you said, if you can't break up the ice, and this is the whole thing about autonomy. Like, you have the right to do nothing. Like, if you can live and do nothing and don't bother anybody else, good for you. As long as you don't take and violate other people, I can look at you and say, man, you could have been more, but I'm not even going to say that to you because, look, you didn't bother anybody. You didn't negatively affect anyone. So I can have reverence for that person just because of that. Because there are people who are rich and they always infringing on other people. So they did a whole bunch of things and they still are a problem.
But it just doesn't overwhelm virtue. I think that's the part that I want to always be really clear that both virtue is better than apathy. And it's like, I get it. You can give up. You can feel free to phone it in. But I have real problems. And when I have a real issue, I'm only going to go to the people who have shown and demonstrated excellence to get them to solve my problem. I'm not going to go to the apathetic person who just happens to be working here. Like, hey man, I have a problem. You're good enough for now. I'm like, you may not be. If this is an issue that I care about, it's a value of mine. You are good enough for now. You are terrible at this. And I will allow you to be terrible for somebody else.
So let me throw you a curveball. So what do you think about John Galt and Atlas Shrugged? Right?
I thought that was amazing that he had the ability to do all the good things he did, but he just wouldn't live on anybody else's terms. So he went out, lived on his own terms, but then he didn't stay there. He decided to find other people else, like minds, and built his tribe. So I admire what he did, and I admire how he did it, because he gave everybody choices.
Okay. I mean, because I'm just thinking about the job that he took after he gave up the motor that ran the world or whatever. And he just took a basic job. Just basically a bare minimum job.
Had to get a rough job. But he did that so that he could work on his other things in his own way. And I'm like, see, he has a different goal here, which is cool. Just cool. So if he had quit the motor, taken a minimum job, and never done anything else with his life, I would have condemnation for that choice. Like this choice negatively affected the world, and I am part of the world. So it negatively affected me because you chose to give up. That was the choice I don't like. So you do it. It's your choice. But morally, I judge it as for.
So I think let's align real quick. You quit, but you didn't impose on anyone else. Right. You're not violating anyone. You're not violating anybody's property. You still pay your rent. You still do all of these things. That doesn't make the world worse. It doesn't negatively affect the world.
Unjust, but it does make the world less than it could be. I'll say it that way.
So to me, that's one of those oversteps, right? To me, that's one of those oversteps, because that's the respect that I have for people, right?
Right. They are allowed to do it, but that's my perspective, my bias, my goal is to solve the problem of growth, personal growth, and then like you put that like an edification of a group of people, with me being the center of the group. Like I'm starting with me as like, I am part of this group that I'm trying to edify. And if I met John Galt, who had the ability to improve the group, and he was like, I chose to give up and don't want to do it. I'm like, that's your choice. And that's your right. And you made a just decision because you're not hurting anybody. But are you helping? Well, no. Well, now you're a giant nugget of gold that's not invested. And so your return on investment is super, super low. And so like, while it's not unjust for you to, hide your nugget of gold and never invest it, I can't pretend you give me a return. I do not value you now in that sense of like, I don't think your decision will give you the biggest return on the investment. And therefore I think it is a poor decision, but it's not my decision. I'm not going to impose it on you. I'm just telling you, I made a judgment, and my judgment is your decision gave you less of a return, and therefore it gives me less of a return if I was going to be trading with you than not.
See, here's my thing. If a person can live a life where they don't impose on other individuals, they necessarily have to be trading of some value. They have to, right?
Yeah.
And so, to me, that is just a fine starting point. To me, that is where my respect begins, because to me, there are other natural things in life that's going to put pressure on this person that may cause them become a diamond instead of a lump of coal. But the whole idea of not infringing on others is a perfectly fine, respectable person to me. That's not, and when I say infringing, I mean all of the crimes. I mean all of the good crimes. When I say good crimes, I mean laws that make sense. You know what I'm saying? Not dumb laws. Not you broke a law that was dumb. All of the laws that make sense. You don't commit any of those things, right? You don't live on other people. You don't steal. You don't ask other people to pay your rent. You don't ask other people to pay for your life. You just right. that is a perfectly respectable, like, it's almost to me, that's almost to the height of respect to me. Like, I understand when people take this idea of, no, but what are you doing? I don't go there. Like, I don't find it necessary to go there. This is why I'm about to get confused again. This is why I love ideas of morality, because to me, you don't need all of these other things to be a higher moral person. No, this is good enough for me. This is good enough for me, because if you live that life under those principles, if something tough were to happen and you were to be in a squeeze, you don't steal. So you're going to have to do something. So you're going to have to provide more value. So now you're giving me more value because of the factors of life. And because you have good principles, now it's coming. Now I know, here we go. We get more value out of you. So that's the reason why I don't try not to step. When it's good enough, I stop there. I don't try to go beyond there. That's my thing.
That's fair. I think you can definitely start with that. This is a good enough approach. This is a good enough type of differently. Not for people who are not harming people. I think that is a bare minimum prerequisite. And I think that's completely appropriate to require people to live by. Like, hey, everybody I respect doesn't hurt people. Like, cool, excellent, great. I think that is a good first step. I just don't want to see people who couldn't go further. I don't want to have them stop there. They are allowed to stop there, but I would like them to go do something else. Like, that's my preference. Is people I want to surround myself with are people who go further. Like, that's great. You didn't hurt anybody else. Awesome. I need people around me to make me better. So you be better than me at something. You'd be demonstrating that value with action. And if you are not doing that, then I'm like, all right, cool. I need you to go not do that over there. I'm going to go do this over here. You stay. I'll go.
Okay. Let me see. I'm trying to think of an example of a person who has provided a lot to society, maybe technological wise, who was a terrible person. And then I want to see, would you trade the person that I'm talking about for the person that whoever this person, like a Martin Scully? Like, I don't really know much about Martin Scully, but I
do it. He helped do a lot to fix our understanding of EKGs. He was a terrible person.
Would you trade the person that I'm talking about would you trade the person that you're talking about for the person that I'm talking about? Or I think it's reverse. If you have a good person, take care, doesn't violate anybody, just as much as they need to not violate anybody, and this is all hypothetical, and I hate hypotheticals, but it's just,
yeah. Would you take the apathetic person who's quick versus the person who's actively harmful but adding to society?
Yeah.
Right. I'm rocking a hard choice, but like, technically, I would choose a terrible person who is adding to society, because I'm like, we have real problems. You'd be solved. It's like, there are some of the worst people gave us the biggest medical breakthroughs. It's like, would you want a cure for cancer or the perfect surgery to remove stuff? Or would you wish that large portion of the Holocaust hadn't happened? Like, it's a terrible choice. But also, I would rather have the answers to the questions than not have the answers. Like, the cost is real high. Yep. Cost is super high. It's not right. It's terrible. But also, I'd rather have the answers than not have the answers. But the cost, though, hey, I mean, lots of real helpful things came out of this cost. This could have been done differently. Probably. Would I go back and trade all the benefits so we didn't have the cost? I don't think so. What if you were part of the cost? I mean, probably there are things that are going to happen to me or have happened that I don't like, that are going to benefit somebody else. I mean, do I want to steal their? Would I rather them not be benefited just so I could be more comfortable? I'm more person I wouldn't. I would rather not. I'd rather them be benefited.
I mean,
it's my personal thing. I would not tell anybody else to live that kind of. I'm not projecting that on anybody's life. This is my value, my choices. I would do this.
So for me, it's not even a choice for me. I'm not trading. And the reason being is because I'm one of these people who think that if there's a need, people will fill it, right?
Okay.
Regardless of what, and reality is going to force people to fill that need. That it's just going to force them. I don't need to be. It's almost like a black hand. This is just like the market that moves the black hand that moves the market, I guess. And if I have good people to fill, you can have good people to fill these needs. You can have bad people to fill these needs, and maybe bad people fill the needs so well because they bad people. I don't know, you know. So I mean, it reminds me, like when I say that, it reminds me of a line from Kanye and Jay-Z, something in the wild, something like that. And he was like, basically, we got to make a whole lot of money because this type of life is expensive. Basically, a heathen life is expensive. And that's kind of the sense that I got from it. You know, we gotta make millions because we live in a terrible life. It's pretty much the words that I got from it. I mean, the sense that I got from it. But at the end of the day, man, I don't think that these. No, I'm not trading it. But at the same time, I don't encourage anybody to be a lump of coal. I just don't think that if you have good principles and you want a world or group that have good principles, I don't think that you can even exist in that way. Like life would not allow you to not do anything. It just wouldn't. If you're living with good principles and you're living ethically, it doesn't allow you, or you die. It's like if you're living with these principles, and if you are living with these principles, then you're going to have to do good. Now, you could not live. You can have these principles and then not live, but that would be I died. So yeah, that's my reasoning on that.
I hear you. And that is the goal. The goal is to have that kind of portion where people with good principles fill in the gaps and meet the needs that are available for people that are shown to be important. So, when that happens, that's great. I think that's definitely something that should be encouraged.
Yeah, man. I guess earlier this week I envisioned like, man, maybe we could just, kind of critique some movies or something, or, you know what I mean? But because I definitely wanted to do the Barbie critique again. I just thought it was like insightful, like a lot of pieces in Barbie to take apart.
Yeah. Anyway, there are a lot of cool parts that you can say, like, it'd be cool to critique movies in a way that is beneficial to say, these are the parts of reality that we want to see more of. It'd be great if this movie could represent it this way. They tried it this other way. Did love that. Want to see this improved.
Yeah. Or what are the flaws in it? Right. What are the implications? What are the assumptions? And I guess, I don't know have you ever been in these conversations where something happens and then I guess you just examine it or judge it, and the other person's like, man, you're making a lot of assumptions. But for you, it's like, now that was this is the logical conclusion of that thing. Like, you just identify that these people don't take the next step. They don't take the next logical conclusion step. It's just that this thing happened in the vacuum. And this, I guess, it relates to the concept of good, because it's like, people aren't like, is this going to help you in the long run? They don't answer that question, And so that's the good thing. And when they don't make decisions that are going to help them in the long run, they just don't have any relationship with goodness, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, so I guess maybe if I frame it this way a little bit different, people argue to do, like sometimes people will argue to do a bad thing that somebody else did. It's like, well, white people kill people, we should be able to kill people too. Or, we don't enslave people, so why can't we? And I don't want to make it just a black or white thing. Like, it's just always this person did this negative thing that was not life-giving. I would like to do that thing as well. Right. And to me, it's like, oh, wow, people really argue to be the next person to try to do these things that don't help us.
Yeah. But why do they do that? What is their main value there?
I mean, I don't know, because to me, it's short term. Whatever it is, it's going to be short term.
Super short term. But it just, to me, like when I hear that, I always think like this person is stuck in a level 4 mentality. This person is focused on justice so much and prizes justice so much that they're like, all right, you get to do it, I get to do it. Like, both things are bad. Don't do it at all. Nobody should do it. It's like, nope, they get to do it, I get to do it. It's only right. Like, but it is wrong. That was the point. The whole thing was wrong. They shouldn't have done it. Neither one of you should do it.
But see, to me, that has nothing to do with justice, though. Like, justice is about goodness, right?
People think justice is, if you get to do it, I get to do it. That's equality. That's how things work. That's what justice is. It's the fact that we both got the same opportunity, not the same opportunity to do the same thing. I'll say that way. Which I'm like, because this is where this whole discussion of equity comes from. They're like, I should get the same thing you have because that's justice. I'm like, you misunderstand justice. You literally think that having the same thing, literally the same, is how equality works, how equity works, how equity works, but how equality works and how righteousness works. And it's like, just because we all have the same thing or got to do the same thing does not mean that justice was served. Doesn't mean that right things happen.
So when I look up justice, right, the second one is the quality of being fair and reasonable. Right? So what you just explained to me was fair, I guess, but not reasonable.
That's for sure. It's not reasonable at all.
But I guess what is so reasonable inside of reasonable? Isn't reasonable? Doesn't that mean to the benefit of? I
don't know. Reasonable is more rational kind of portion. It just should be evidence related.
Well, rational to me is to the benefit. When I say rational, this is to the benefit of me. I'm making a choice that gives me a benefit.
I hear you. Some people have associated reason with logic. Logic can be unhelpful, but you're right. Reason should be beneficial.
Because when we say justice, and I'm just trying to get back to that whole thing, I didn't necessarily think that wasn't my first thought of justice. Like, oh, you got to commit. And this is just the first thing that's coming up to my mind. Other people have been able to commit murders and take money. Why shouldn't I be able to do this as well? Right. But it has no connection with goodness or reasonable. Right. But I guess you have to see yourself in a society to understand why it's unreasonable. Because let's say you take somebody's stuff. You have the stuff, they're dead. You killed them and they died. Okay. You could say, well, it's reasonable. I had the stuff, I didn't care about them. But the real problem comes in when other people are like, well, I could kill you too and take your stuff. This is so the issue only comes in the social interaction. That's what I mean. I mean,
the crime was social. So yes. So then the next logical portion is that the same social crime you perpetrated can be perpetrated against you.
Right. So I guess I'm just thinking about I'm just trying to figure out and hone in on that reasonable portion. Just because if there's no in the mystical world, then there's no possibility of retaliation from anyone else. I guess you could call this reasonable. Because if there's no retaliation, all you would have to have is some care or concern for the other individual, which
I mean, you could, or you could just have a long-term viewpoint. But if you only have a short-term viewpoint, then you could justify it, but wouldn't be justified any other way.
Okay, if it's a long-term viewpoint. Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, I try to get to the roots of these ideas because I think a lot of times people forget or they don't. A lot of the crimes that we see today with children who have not been given context to operate in a society that, self-governing and rooted in individualism and freedom. This is what happens when you don't give them the baseline understanding of how to interact with each other. Because you can easily just be like, yo, that person doesn't mean anything to me. And a lot of people and this is my issue, you'll hear people say things like, oh my goodness, I can't believe he did that. Or I can't believe this was so savage. This was so... If you don't teach a kid to care about people, where are they supposed to get this conception of justice and their respect and all of this stuff from? What is it? People think that you come out of the womb like, oh man, I really care about people.
Just for good. What happened? Where do all the problems come from in the world? Where do all the social problems come from if we're just born good? Shouldn't we all just have the answers and be fixed by now? I don't know. We'll make bad choices. We have to educate understand how crime works at all. But I don't even know if you're interested in learning.
That is the answer though, Josh. But educating them late is a problem.
You can't educate people who aren't learning. You can't educate people who are motivated by different things. If somebody is starving and you're like, hey, don't eat bread. Don't eat bread. That's not yours. No, they'll do it. I'm like, it's not an education issue. They're gonna eat. They're gonna steal the bread every time. They're starving. You needed bread. You needed to teach them how work functions and give them food before they got to a point of utter starvation. I mean, it's not that they were unfamiliar with the idea of crime or ownership. They needed to eat anyway. There are other factors we ignore whenever we make education the only solution.
But I guess, to me, education is the only solution, because what you're doing is you're setting a foundation to operate from.
It just can't be the only thing we go to. We have to recognize that there's a time and place for it, but it can't be the thing we lean on as if it's going to fix the issues that we have. Like there were real issues this person was trying to solve. It's not always a matter of being unfamiliar with what the solutions are. Like I have real problems that needed to get solved today, and I solved them today. I solved them in the wrong way, and maybe I could have learned a better way to do it, but I had to solve them, and now this is where I ended up.
So I think we kind of like iterations beyond that, right? So the reason why I say this, that mentality right there, in an 18-year span of being educated in a specific way with having your immediate needs taken care of by your parents, I don't understand how you really don't get there, because you don't have any immediate needs that can't be fulfilled by them necessarily. Maybe till like, let's say 10. Let's just call it 10 or 11 in a proper household, right? What's up?
It's just people exist who are not very nice, and so it's you can't start with the premise that everybody had the proper upbringing. Even if there were resources around, people abuse power. And when that happens, the reaction, you create more damaged individuals. Those damaged individuals usually can result with a really ineffective or inefficient way of dealing with problems, issues, or concerns. And so like this happens way too often for it to be like, oh, well, it's unlikely. I'm like, it's very likely. It's very likely that a lot of people are going to grow up abused. A lot of people are going to get starved at home, aren't going to get the needs met emotionally or physically. And then they're going to come up with another problem in the real world and not have any of the resources to cope. They're going to already be too stressed out at home and have a lifetime of abuse to deal with. And they're going to respond out of panic, and they're just going to do something terrible because that is the model they have seen. Their parents also got the same model. They're passing it down. So it just happens a lot. I just say it's not all the time, but when we have 20% of crime or 20% of people who become criminals, if that's even close to true, then I'm like, we have to at least acknowledge it. All right. That's even if they had all the physical needs met, there are broken people in the world.
But it's almost like, to me, that's neither here nor there. Once again, I go to this whole what should we do? Because at the end of the day, like, no matter, as you're talking, no matter what you're going to do to fix this thing, it's going to be some form of education. Everything that you do, if they didn't have this, well, we're going to have to educate them in a different way. Oh, if they didn't have that, well, we're just going to have to. We don't have to educate them in a different way. What I'm saying to you is that this is the best thing that we can do for them. Hey, you need bread. We don't operate in a society where we want you to take bread from someone else. Here, these are jobs. They give you money for this job. You can take this money and go buy bread. This is a full, basic understanding, fundamental system that you can operate within and live for a long time and not really have to upset your neighbor who may shoot you in the face if you come in this house for bread. So you've solved a lot of your problems that you could put for your life in a sense.
I'm not saying education is wrong. I just don't think it's enough. I think there are still going to be people, even after we educate everybody, who are still going to make the same choice.
But once again, to me, that's neither here nor there. So,
okay, long as that can be accepted, that's great. This is part of the risk of the system. All right. Yes, it is.
Yeah. I mean, of course. Once again, what are we going to do? I could say that all of these things exist. Okay, what are the best things for us to do, regardless of the possibilities of people? It's not even regardless of, with full understanding that there are people who it's not going to take. Yeah, this is the best thing we should do. We should give them a full, comprehensive understanding of what is going on here, a fundamental understanding. All of these things you see happening around here, these are the reasons why we are doing these things. This is the reason we don't take things from our neighbor. This is the reason why it's bad. Don't just say, don't do that, it's bad. Say, no, we don't want to do that for these reasons. You give everybody that basic fundamental understanding. Like you would even, in my theory, I'm theorizing, you're actually going to help a lot of people that turned into criminals because they just didn't understand, because you didn't give them a full understanding of what the hell was going on here. You just more or less was like, hey, go out there and don't be bad. And they just didn't know what that meant. And so to me, when you give them a fundamental understanding of, hey, here's what we mean by all of this stuff, then it's just that's the Mara thing again. Like, oh, my parents told me to do stuff, but they never understood. They never explained why. Here's the why. Here's the reason, you know?
I think that's excellent, but we have to also put into place systems that disabuse people of the notions that they can make all choices. And I think that's helpful when the justice system is effective. I mean, in the sense of like it actively discourages criminals from doing things by providing consequences and going out of its way to direct people's activity into more productive routes. And I think that's something, I'm not the biggest fan of the idea of rehabilitation, but I'm like, we really could build better systems if rehabilitation was our goal. There are other ways to rehabilitate instead of just punishing people. Punishment can be part of the system, but it can't be the only thing.
I agree. I think people, it's a lot of reasons why this stuff is no good. Like rehabilitation is no good to me. And people just like, don't care. That's what I really think. Like, I mean, and sometimes it's warranted. It's like, look, man, you killed 4 people, man. I don't care. Okay. And it's kind of sad, but at the end of the day, man, it's like, sometimes when you make certain decisions, you don't garner any empathy from people, you know?
You definitely don't. I think empathy or not, society could take the proactive route of identifying people with helpful skill sets that society needs and identifying them early or identifying them whenever, even in late in jail, and be more proactive to say, we need to make sure we create a system for this person to effectively perform it. If they're, up and now, if they have the ability to be a phenomenal problem solver on this uber level because they're a genius who happens to have no support, it would be really great if we could focus their effort and ability and train them to be more effective over here. And if they do the things we want, reward them. And if they do the things we don't want, you have to punish them and create more and more precautions to make sure they can't harm anyone else.
I mean, I feel like that happens. I mean,
I don't think it happens enough. I think our education system is lacking, and I think the for-profit prisons do not effectively identify some of the people who are most helpful or allow them to be most productive. And I would love to see that change in a systematic or methodical way. I'm like, we could do this differently.
I don't think it's going to happen centralized though. Like to me, the first things I'm thinking about is pro athletes, basketball players, or hackathons. Right. To me, because when you 6'5" at 10 years old, everybody wants to give you all the advantages and chances that they can. You know what I'm saying? But this is not centralized. These are individual characters that all are playing to get into your life. Right.
Right.
And then if you think about, to me, like a hackathon, you're like, well, these people are violated. Like, oh man, this person hacked into all of these computers. We want to lock you up, but we also want to offer you a job. It's just, but these, once again, I don't see the benefit of making, when you say society, and I don't know how you're approaching it, but these are individual actors. This is how I look at it. This is why when you let people do what they need to do, that when an Asian is going to want to get to the kid that's got the skills, and then they can make money and the kid can get fulfilled. Not to say that this is going to work out perfectly in your context or whatever, but these are the incentives, you know? And so because of these incentives, these jobs are going to get fulfilled. Because of these, and most times these are going to be financial incentives.
Yes.
So can we help kids? I mean, yes, yeah. yes, you can, but it's just like, how are we helping? And that's kind of, to me, how I look at it. And for me, this is kind of similar to the argument about a decent person. Like, yo, I just give them the reasons why we're doing this thing that we're doing. Because I'm not going to pretend like we didn't just make it up, because we just made it up. And
Right.
when we keep trying to raise kids or people and pretend like, no, here are these rules. You know, you have to do these things. They don't really have to do any of this stuff.
Right.
You don't have to do any of it. We do it because it's of a benefit to me. That's why, it's a good system. And this is another reason why that whole contextless mentality is stupid, because I would like a system that allows me to have a long-term life. I need context. I need a way to go about doing things. I'm not going to pick up socialism one day and pick up capitalism the next day and pick up statism the next day and say all these things are equally valid.
So, right, that is a terrible thing to say, a terrible thing to do. And the only people who would live that kind of opportunistic life would be, I don't want to call them grifters anymore, but like politicians who will just lie to people. I'm like, this is an effective way. There have been politicians who have used these lies effectively. And so I could see why someone would say, you can pick it up over here. I'm like, yes, these people have picked these things up and lied to people before, but the things that they said were not true. Like, it did not work out the way they said,
Right.
ever. It wasn't because they were imperfect people and it was done imperfectly. It was a lie. There was no way it was ever going to work, ever. It didn't work on the small scale, and it didn't work on a big scale. People pretend like, well, communism works on a small scale to include the family. I'm like, have you never seen a family? Do you not see the people who go to work and bring the things back and then share? Was it redistributed by this grand central figure? The central figure actively went out of his way to perform the work of poor people so that poor people could eat. There was no redistribution wasn't the problem or the issue or the solution. Production was. Production was. Not pretending production just magically happens. It doesn't.
Right. I mean,
Anyway, the lie is the product.
yes. I mean, I get that part. I guess I'm just thinking out loud, and I'm like, because I just get this idea that these people aren't aware of this lie.
And there are some people who aren't aware. Like, there is a time, there's a time and place for the education so people have that clarity. I think, oh man, it's how like in a conversation, I wouldn't start with the education. I would start with like the hook and break down like the relevant problem, then show how other people tried to fix the relevant problem and how it didn't work. And then you would make time like, oh, by the way, there might be a way to solve this problem. Other people solved it this way. This is my argument for how we should solve the problem as well. I think that's when we start talking about the education piece.
Are you saying that there's a choice of how we're going to approach this thing? Like,
there's always choices, sure. But what I'm saying is that certain approaches, like the way people have approached it matters, and like the way that people have approached it in a way that was most helpful involved communicating the shared value first and a shared problem before we got to education. So like there was a significant amount of persuasion and had to happen first for there to be a change in behavior.
are these adults or these kids that you're talking about?
Both, but mostly adults have been the ones who were able to respond appropriately.
I mean, because so I think, to me, like, for adults, a lot of times the cake is almost ready, That's kind of how you think about it. And it's so much fundamental understanding that happens in children that it's almost that you are programming.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and they literally don't have other options. I mean, when they get older, maybe they don't have, it's not like, hey, 4-year-old, people who died in Russia and blah, blah, blah. I don't understand any of these things. I don't know what Russia is, you know what I'm saying? It's like, can you just give you some framework here? It's just like, I think, like, maybe you could try to you'll ease it into them. You spoon feed them for a while, but they're not going to have understanding of the framework, because even you don't fully get a good grasp of the framework until you really have to work and feed yourself. You don't really understand it.
Right. It becomes a lot more real when you actually have a specific need to fill.
But that doesn't mean you should wait to give them their framework until they get 16 or whatever. So that's my focus. I'm talking about, that's what I mean about foundational level for children. I'm more or less thinking about almost both pre-10 years old. Like, what can we do to give them a good foundation to operate from? Just basics. Because they're not going to be able to understand the context of much beyond those basics.
No. That's all they do. I mean, that's like the key basics are part they need the most. And so that certainly when it comes to a real education, there is a need to communicate the main points they need of the foundation, model the foundation and show why it works. Give them the context like, hey, I said these things, you've seen me do these things. Now I have the things you want. If you also want these things, let's do these things this way. This is the model. This is the step. These are the way to do it.
Yeah. This is I think it's something I'm gonna just keep working on. I was trying to find something. I was trying to find this part, and stop me because I wanted to read this part because I just felt like it was related to this. But I think I might have read this or said this before, so I just stop me if you heard this piece before. And so this is kind of the section. This is from what I was writing about in the collectivized mind, and it just reminds me of kind of like what we were just talking about just now. And and it's kind of like about oughts and musts and formulas and things of that nature, right? And so I kind of went through this part, and it was a quote. And so I start with like, he notes, then this was talking about young notes that individuals with this conscious attitude, meaning extroverted socialized mind, extroverted, kind of rational extroverted mentality, demonstrate a prompt grasp of the immediate present and its superficial aspects, though not of its deeper meanings. That was a quote from him. I guess I probably should have read it differently. He notes that individuals with this conscious attitude demonstrate a prompt grasp of the immediate present and its superficial aspects, though not of its deeper meanings, unquote. This observation mirrors the tendency that Rand criticizes in collectivized decision-making, a focus on the immediate surface level benefits without delving in to the deeper, more nuanced implications. Projects that seem, and we're talking about people who think that, they're creating projects for society because they must or whatever. Projects that seem desirable on the surface may ignore underlying complexities and unintended consequences leading to decisions that are appealing in the short term, but detrimental overall. And so furthermore, Jung's insight, which states his rapidity of action looks like decisiveness more often than not is just blind impulse, unquote, depicts the collectivized soul's rush to implement grand schemes with their, quote, excitability and enthusiasm that soon fades, unquote, sheds light on why, once implemented, the disastrous results of such hasty, roughshod decisions dissipate into a mere afterthought, which quickly dwindle from their mind because, quote, as a rule, memory is considerably impaired. These actions, though appearing decisive and beneficial, stem from an impulsive response to surface level issues rather than thoughtful consideration of deeper impacts. This impulsiveness, as Jung suggests, arises from a failure to fully appreciate or understand the emotional and practical ramification of such actions. And so it's a full course, like his thinking has more of the character of representation and orderly arrangement of contents than that of abstraction and synthesis. So it's thinking about like how people, when you're talking about, and I'm going to kind of continue, but I just want to give context to make it relevant. When you're talking about the way people tell these lies, and my mind is kind of going to like Russia or, even maybe like a Hitler or something like that. Or like, we're going to create these grand societies. Yes, we have these lies. And I'm saying like, I don't know that they really, I don't know that they really know that this is a lie. But what we do know is that people always have to die for these lies to stay relevant. Has to be a pile of bodies somewhere so we can continue this lie, right? And so, once again, I'm going back to this on like Rand's critique of the collectivized soul, which loses sight of individual rights in favor of collective objectives, finds an echo in Jung's observation of the extroverted thinking type, who tends to codify societal arts and musts, which are quotes, into rigid intellectual formulas. These formulas, while aiming to address societal issues such as the care of the sick, the suffering, or the abnormal, often lead to the creation of extensive plans for humane societies, hospitals, and other welfare institutions. However, Jung highlights a critical gap in these endeavors. The motivation behind them often stems more from a rigid adherence to the collective formulas than from genuine empathy or compassion, which he attributes more greatly to feeling. So this is what I mean about these formulas. Like these people have these formulas. It's like society must be like this, and we must take care of all. Like we have this idea of communism, and we must execute it. And if people don't like it and they're not making it work, we have to do something with those bodies. You know what I'm saying? It's just this formula, right? Yeah. I think it's just like a smaller part. I think Hannah gets a little bit more into it. So in this context, the formula that Jung refers to is not just a set of guidelines, but an almost instinctive compulsion to impose collective ideals at the expense of individual nuances and needs. Jung elaborates further. This is a quote. Because this formula seems to embody the entire meaning of life, it is made into a universal law which must be put into effect everywhere, all the time, both individually and collectively. Just as the extroverted thinking type subordinates himself to this formula, so for their own good, everybody around him must obey it too. For whoever refuses to obey it is wrong. He is resisting the universal law and therefore unreasonable, immoral, and without a conscience, unquote. And this is the last one. So, and this is me. While Jung's elucidation provides evident insight into the moral importance of the intellectual formula for the psyche of the extroverted thinking type, it behooves us to recognize that Jung's use of the word formula features a special characteristic. The attitude of extroversion can only project onto others. This projection is not merely a preference, but a dogmatic adherence to a collective standard, which overlooks individual differences and personal needs. In other words, the conscious attitude of the type ignores their self while projecting its contents onto others and expects others to do the same. In this way, the self and the collective remain undifferentiated, reflecting the modern day manifestation of the primitive practice participation mystique. This approach, while it may create a facade of unity and common purpose, leads to the neglect of the deeper personal aspects of human life. I think that's pretty much everything. So
That's clear.
It's just, to me, like, I don't know the way that they say this, the socialized mind. It's like their conscious attitude is collective, and their subconscious mind is like, it's in neurosis. That's pretty much what he's saying. So like they have these, I mean, to an extreme. You know, when you go to the extreme, there are people who just have this idea of positively correct collective, but their individual self is distorted. I guess I could say. Right. And I say all this just to say that these formulas from the psychological theories that we get from the two that we even looked at today, these are acknowledged psychological perspectives where people identify themselves with the group and cannot unidentify themselves with them. And some of them go to the extent to say that, hey, this is what we must do with society, and will lie. And
yes,
hold on, dude. Let me give you one more. This is a Jung quote, because I think this kind of will put the cherry on the top. So Jung further elaborates on the consequence of such a mindset of what I was just reading. So, quote, in keeping with the objective formula, the conscious attitude becomes more or less impersonal, often to such a degree that personal interests suffer. If the attitude is extreme, all personal considerations are lost sight of, even those affecting the subject's own person. His health is neglected, his social position deteriorates, The most vital interests of his family, health, finances, morals are violated for the sake of the ideal. Personal sympathy with others must in any case suffer unless they happen to espouse they too happen to espouse the same ideal. Often the closest members of his family, his own children, know such a father only as a cruel tyrant, while the outside world resounds with the fame of his humanity. It's that's kind of what I'm talking about. It's like they just have no. Yeah, I think I kind of like beat a dead horse with that a little bit, but that's the mentality, and you have to get out ahead of that mentality because they don't have no qualms about telling you what to do. You know, and they don't have any qualms about lying.
You know, they will, once you see them running the script, that's it. There's no more question of where we're going here at the end. It's like, no, we want your stuff. Take your stuff out. This is how this has always gone. This is what we need to say to get your stuff. We are not afraid to say these things. Therefore, we are not afraid to get your stuff. Now, anyway, when people start talking about communism, socialism, or now the new and the more current up to date terms, a universal basic income and a living wage, I'm like, all right, to try to get our stuff again. They said, say the words. We all need to agree that they said the words. Let's treat them as if they're a threat. Because last time they said the words, it took us up. I want to be real clear. It's not a secret.
Yeah, you ain't lying. I mean, because they operate on the idea of there is no your stuff. We have to look at new ways of looking at the world. Who said that?
My old ways. Your oldest ways, technically, those are the ones I like the most. Yeah, look at it that way.
You mean the medieval barbarian ways?
Have you ever heard my stuff? No, they've said that before. I've heard that a lot. People said that they want to. That's not new at all. But I never said it before. Okay, you not said it to me before. That doesn't mean it's an actual new way in the world. It's new to you. I've heard it a lot. A lot of people said this before.
Yeah, man. That's what it is.
It's crazy. It's crazy because it's so common, and it's sad that it's so accepted. That people even like Elon Musk will get on the mic and talk about, we have so much prosperity now. There are so many billionaires in the world. We just need to redistribute the wealth. We could do universal basic income. We could probably make that work. Like, the premise is wrong.
Yeah.
It's not societies to give away. The group doesn't exist. The group is just how we categorize the rest of us. And in no way, shape, or form did, quote unquote, the rest of us have enough to support a whole generation of people. It's just not working. That's not how production works. Nor should it. They don't want this to work that way. That would be harmful to us, people.
And it's not even how people work, Josh. They're not going to create healthy people like that.
No, it's not sustainable, and it's not healthy. It's not helpful long term. This does not work out well. We have tried the theft of large amounts of tried it. It did not work for anyone, but mostly us, but also anyone else.
Yeah, man. That's what's up.